So, you want to get better at chess and you're tired of the same generic advice like analyze your games and do puzzles. A ton of puzzles. Yeah, puzzles are super important because they help you spot patterns and get faster at finding tactics. But they're not the only thing that'll level up your game. In this video, I've put together 8 strategies that helped me break 2000 on chess.com, and you can start using them right away to actually improve your play, whether you're just starting out or you've been stuck at the same rating for months. Building an opening repertoire. When you're starting to build an opening repertoire, you don't need to memorize every single line out there. Trying to cram all that info into your head will just mess you up. What I recommend is way simpler and actually works. Just prepare responses to the most common moves your opponent might play and stick to those. Playing the same lines over and over helps you build practical experience because you'll start recognizing familiar positions and know the right plans more naturally. As white, you've got a few options, like 1e3, 1g3, or 1c4, but the most popular openings are 1e4 and 1d4. Usually, 1e4 leads to more open games, while 1d4 tends to create more positional setups. So try to go with an opening that fits your style. Let's say you go with 1e4. At that point, the most common replies from black are e6, e5, d5, c6, and c5. The main idea here is that you should already have a go-to plan for each of those defenses. If your opponent plays e5, you could go into an Italian game. If they play d5, maybe switch to an exchange variation, and so on. If they play something weird or a line you haven't studied, no problem. Just keep developing your pieces and controlling the center. You don't need to memorize 20 theoretical moves to survive the opening. All you really need to understand is the logic behind those moves, which can be summarized in 3 main points. Control the center, develop all pieces, starting with light ones, and castle within the first 10 moves. Just following those 3 simple rules can get you into solid positions against most players. Now let's talk about what not to do in the opening. Don't move the same piece multiple times, don't push too many pawns, don't take the queen out too early, and don't make pointless moves. Always ask yourself what your opponent is threatening. One of the most common mistakes is only focusing on your own moves without thinking about what your opponent is trying to do. After every move your opponent makes, you should always ask yourself, what is the purpose of this move? Maybe they're setting up a pawn break, or maybe there's a tactical threat coming. If you can figure out their plan, you'll be way better prepared to deal with it and avoid nasty surprises. So let's say your opponent opens with 1e4. You reply with 1e5. Both of you develop your pieces, and then they suddenly play queen to h5. If you don't stop and ask yourself, why did they bring the queen out so early? You might ignore the threat and you get hit with the scholar's mate. And obviously, you don't want that. Don't trade your bishop for a knight without a good reason. In chess, every piece is given a standard value. Both a pair of knights and a pair of bishops are usually valued at 6 points, but it really depends on the position. In very closed positions, knights can be more effective because they can hop over pieces and create threats in tight spaces. That said, a lot of grandmasters agree that compared to a pair of knights or a mixed pair, having both bishops is basically like having an extra point. That's because bishops control more squares from a distance, and especially in the middle game. When the center starts to open up, they become a powerful weapon. So avoid trading off your bishop early in the game. Do it only if you're taking out a really strong piece sitting on a key square, if the position is super closed, or if the trade gives you an immediate tactical advantage. Master clock timing. Ever lost a winning position because you ran out of time? We all have. In chess, even the most brilliant idea is worthless if you don't have the time to play it. Whether you're in bullet, blitz, or rapid, bad clock management turns winning positions into heartbreaking losses. So how do you fix it? Start by not overthinking the obvious. Play your openings quickly. If you've studied your lines, trust them. Utilize opponent's turn to think about your strategy, and save the deep calculation for the middle game. Learn the coordinates. Every square on a chessboard has a specific coordinate. The files are labeled A through H, and the ranks go from 1 to 8. Pretty simple, right? But the vast majority of players underestimate how important it is to fully internalize this system. The goal is to recognize squares instantly. Knowing that this square is c5 and that one is f4 is crucial because it boosts your spatial vision. Spatial vision is what helps you keep track of where all the pieces are and visualize potential threats. How many times have you lost a piece just because you forgot about the bishop sitting in the corner? That kind of mistake happens when your spatial skills aren't sharp yet, and your mental map of the board is still incomplete. A simple way to train this is by using the free coordinate trainer on Licious. Just pick one of the two training modes, click Start Training, and you're good to go. Counterattack and don't be passive. Let me give you an example so you can see exactly what I mean. Let's say your opponent tries a lever attack. In this position, the classic response is to play pawn to d5, and after he captures, you play knight to a5, attacking the bishop. But if you want to counterattack, I suggest bishop to c5. Now the best move for your opponent is bishop takes f7, but most players will go for knight takes f7 because they'll be tempted by the fork on the queen and rook, and that's where your attack begins, with bishop takes f2. Now your opponent has a choice, capture or not. If they capture, you play knight takes a4, and suddenly they're in big trouble. They only have 6 legal moves and 4 of them lose instantly. For example, if the king goes to e3, you play queen to h4. If they grab the rook, he practically gets checkmate in a few moves. So after knight takes e4, the best move for white is king to g1. But even then, you go queen to g4, threatening mate. After pawn to g3, you take with the knight. When they recapture, you go queen takes g3, and now their only move is king to f1. From here, the plan is simple. Pin the knight to the king, push pawn to g5, then bishop to c3 check. And just like that, the dynamic has flipped. You're the one taking the initiative and going after their king. In chess, no one wins by just defending. To win, you have to force your opponent to make mistakes, and the best way to do that is by attacking. That doesn't mean throwing all your pieces forward with zero regard for defense, but being able to recognize the right moment to take the initiative and punish every inaccurate move of the opponent. Going back to the earlier position, even if white decides not to capture your bishop, you can play queen to d7, and now white has to be super careful because you're threatening to trap their queen and win the game. Use the elimination method to calculate. In chess, there are basically 2 essential styles of play. There's the positional style, think Karpov, which is all about long-term strategy, improving your pieces, and controlling key squares. And then there's the tactical style, focused on sharp combinations and forcing moves, more like Mikhail Tal. No matter what your style is, in every game you'll have to calculate, sometimes more, sometimes less. Calculating means visualizing and analyzing a sequence of moves in your head to predict what might happen. To help navigate that complexity, Grandmaster Alexander Kotov, in his book, came up with the concept of candidate moves. Basically, the possible options you consider before you start calculating any variations. But as you can imagine, if you're playing rapid or blitz games, this kind of deep thinking can eat up way too much time, especially if you're considering a bunch of candidate moves. That's why a much more practical method is the elimination approach. If you see that a candidate move is weak, you can eliminate it, focusing only on the stronger moves. That way, you'll simplify your calculation process and save a ton of time. Let's go through step by step how to calculate using this approach. It's white's move, and in this position, the candidate moves you'd be looking at are knight takes on c3, castling, or queen to d5 with check. A good rule of thumb is to always look at checks first. They're the easiest to calculate. Then look at captures. In this case, you've got 3 possible checks, but queen to d5 stands out as the best one because it not only gives check, but also attacks the bishop. Now you just have to figure out how your opponent might respond. He could play king to f8, then you take with check. He plays queen to a7, attacking your pawn. You check again, he plays knight to f6. You take the pawn. He pushes a 6, and so on. Try to calculate at least 4 moves deep, so you can stay a step ahead of your opponent. That's already a solid starting point. I know it might feel tricky at first, but with practice, this whole process will get way faster. Use the 20-40-40 rule. When it comes to getting better at chess, one of the most underrated parts is the middle game and the end game. A great way to structure your study time is by following the 20-40-40 rule. Spend 20% of your time on openings, 40% on the middle game, and 40% on end games. And if you think about it, that totally makes sense. Most games are decided in the middle game or end game. As for the middle game, Some strategies that will help you win are: connect all the pieces so that no one is left isolated. Put your rooks on open files. Try to trade your side pawns for central pawns so you can control the center. If your opponent has an isolated pawn, block it with one of your pieces, preferably with the knight. Don't create weak squares in your position. And if you're ahead, simplify the position by trading pieces. Magnus Carlsen is a master at this. As soon as he takes the advantage, he practically forces you to change. The endgame is the stage of the game that begins when most of the pieces have already disappeared from the board. At that point, the approach changes completely from the opening or mid-game. It's no longer about developing pieces or attacking the king. It's often just about activating the king and promoting a pawn. To play this phase well, it's essential to know some typical patterns, like queen versus pawn, rook endgames, stalemate situations, because recognizing these can dramatically increase your chances of winning. And if you recognize them right away, you'll play with confidence and accuracy. If you want to practice, chess.com has puzzles made specifically to help you improve in this part of the game. Let me know in the comments what your rating goal is, and see you next time.